What's up, Big 12 Nation? It is Tuesday night in America. That could mean only one thing. It's time for another edition of your favorite YouTube-centric Big 12 college football show. That's right. It's the one. It's the only. Even my dog's excited about it. It is the biggest 12 with me, your host, Clint Foster. No brownie tonight, but we've got two incredible guests to make up for it. We're talking all things Citronuts, ladies and gentlemen. Knights, don't call them golden. UCF down there in Orlando. It's going to be a fun show. But before we get into any of that, I need something from you. I need you to subscribe to the show. There it is at the bottom of the screen at Big 12 VOCFB. Hoping by Twitter, if Twitter's any indication, we're going to have a lot of Knights in the chat this evening. So welcome, and while you're here, give us a subscribe, give us a like, help us build this community. We're trying to take this thing international, all right? So tell everyone you know, your friends, your neighbors, your cousins, your lovers, your brothers, your enemies, even Cincinnati fans, tell them too, okay? We want everyone in the tent, in the umbrella here. And while you're following and subscribing to things, follow me at Clint_Foster55. It's hiding behind the Monster 12 logo right there. Clint_Foster55. Follow the voice of college football on all of your social medias. Subscribe to my personal YouTube channel at Clint Foster Creations. You're going to see Heartbreak before the end of the month on there, my new documentary about Jim Pittman's heart attack during the Baylor game. You're definitely going to want to check that one out. I may be delaying the public premiere a little bit because I'm trying to add another interview after the fact. But if you're subscribed, you're going to be the first to see it whenever I drop it. So do that. Download us wherever you get your podcasts. Check out thevoiceofcollegefootball.com so we can survive this offseason together. It's almost over, y'all. It's almost over. And that's all the podcast business. So hope you're having a great Tuesday. Gentlemen, we've got Dolly Drama. We've got Wild Bill Brian Peterson, my two favorite Knights in the house. How are you two doing tonight on this fine Tuesday?
Foster, thank you for having us once more again. It's like an annual thing. I love it.
Yes. Yeah, we're happy to be here. I'm disappointed that none of us three managed to wind up on the show with a monster in hand. That's a fail on our part.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I've got a Martin House IPA. It looked kind of spacey to me.
Yeah.
So that's why I was like,
Citronaut Blue.
Yeah, Citronaut Blue. We've got a scary skeleton with some high tech something or other on him. But this is a local Fort Worth brewery, and we're gonna make it through this IPA. Good evening, Clint. Yes, hello, Dishfish. Happy to have you as always. Okay, one thing I want to get us started off with is a tweet that was kind of making the rounds, at least the Big 12 rounds, earlier this week. And it's something that I've got opinions on. I'd love to hear y'all's opinions. This CFB liaison says, I make a lot of jokes, but I'm dead serious about this, Big 12 fans. If you're a BYU fan, you should be cheering for Utah against Arkansas. If you're an Arizona fan, you should be cheering for Arizona State against Texas A&M. If you're a TCU fan, you should be cheering for Baylor against Auburn. Hate your rivals during conference play, but when they're playing the SEC, their wins help the perception of the entire conference. Gentlemen, is this the way to live our lives, or as I tweeted several years ago, as conference solidarity for chumps? What is your opinion on this?
I think you got
to, but I mean, you got to support your conference mates.
Well, then I'm in the minority because you can miss me with this nonsense. Listen, in this world of college football, the powers that be have made it extremely clear that they do not give two solitary poops about the Big 12. They are not going to put in a BYU that is much more deserving over, who made it in over BYU last year? I already forgot. Miami, right? Yeah. Which, okay, fine. They made it to the championship. Okay, whatever. But they don't care, right? And it's what you control your own destiny, right? If I want TCU in the playoff, it's going to be we have to go undefeated or have one loss, and then we're going to get in. I am not going to waste my time rooting for a Baylor, rooting for a Utah, rooting for a Texas Tech. I mean, I'll root for a UCF, I'll root for a Oklahoma State. It's because it's, hey, that's no skin off of my nose. I have no ill will, As of right now, we're a party of one that has won in the playoff. Okay, so let's talk some UCF. And Dolly, I want to start with something that you retweeted. This is, I believe, from the Orlando Sentinel, yes?
Yeah, Mr. Mike Bianchi.
Okay. Yes, so he had a column talking about that the Scott Frost Nostalgia Tour is officially over already in year 2 back in Orlando, and you agreed heartily with him. How short is Scott Frost's leash, and how short should it be?
I think you give him last year. You know, he came in the middle of December. It was a good feel-good story. I know Terry, you know, everyone wants to say that, you know, Terry was found the best guy. I'm sure he took some swings. And some guys in this new era of NIL and revenue share, you know, we're kind of getting our bones about that. We had a collective that was kind of fizzling out with some changes in leadership as well. You know, I think it's just kind of like, listen, I can come to UCF. That's fine. What do you have for a roster in NIL, right? And I think Scott Frost was the best guy that we could have got that juiced up the fan base, reinvigorated the purse strings. And we could also give him some grace in that year 1. But you know, you look like a Kurt Cignetti in places that you shouldn't normally win. You just need a couple years. So he's seen what it looks like here. We're quietly his only winning season as a, you know, head football coach, which is kind of wild. You know what I mean? That was a stellar season that made a lot of millionaires, you know, from that 1 year for that coaching staff. I think this year, my expectation, you know, he's saying that he likes the vibe in the building. I think he's instilled this culture for sure. I think he learned a lot of things along the way, going out to California under McVay. But he's got to get to a bowl game this year. He's got to be on the plus side of 500 for things to keep going. If he gets anything above that, you know, he's got his QB room rolling. But you know, you got to start whispering to some quarterbacks, and you kind of have to get us on the board. We had some momentum to begin the year. You know, out of conference, you beat Bill Belichick at home. And we were believing, you know, it looked like the old Scott Frost 1.0, but we couldn't run the ball.
Win does that for you.
Yeah. You know?
Then the season goes awry.
Yeah, then it goes awry. So I think I think he has to get to a bowl game for sure this year. And if he, you know, depending on the opponent, if we don't win that, but a bowl game, you know, I need to be going into October, knowing that I just need 1 win or 2 more to go bowling. If, you know, we fizzle out another 5-7 season, I don't think it's going to be too good for Scotty.
Well, I think there's 2 ways to look at this, right? You've got the fan base side of UCF that is probably suffering from the Gus era of things, right? We had the Gus era. Gus Malzahn was our coach for several years, and he just did not pan out well. So I think that there is frustration on the UCF fan side of things where, you know, we've had several years now, 3 or 4 years of just disappointment after disappointment after disappointment. Now Scott Frost comes in and he kind of inherits that issue, right? Yes, he's the new face and he brings with him, you know, the nostalgia of the 2017 season and all that fun stuff. And maybe he gets a break from the 2025 season. He did come in really late in the recruiting cycle. He didn't come in until, you know, December almost. So he had to build an entirely new staff, go out and find players in the portal that would fit his system and kind of deal with a locker room that was crumbling in terms of culture. So I think he gets that year 0 moniker for 2025. He gets that mulligan. But I think if you're UCF fans, you're growing very, very tired of being substandard. Whether, you know, we're in the Big 12 now or not, we're used to winning. And this fan base is going to get real tired if things don't turn around here in this 2026 season in some form or fashion.
Let me tell you, like an 8-4, 9-3 in the Big 12 is kind of like a 10-2, 11-1 in the American. You know what I mean? We don't have the max resources. But, you know, you just want to be in games. And I feel like we were kind of in games, dude, but it would just unravel in the second quarter. I think that's a lot of mental reps and heart and just trying to digging into that. You need to set culture. You know, I think this year he's saying the opening of camp, we're not really having that many false starts or just kind of, you know, getting guys off sides or people that we have to coach effort on. Now we can like hit the little things. So, you know, granted it's talking season, so everybody's what is he going to say? It's like, I don't think it's that great. But I think there's a different juice about it. And I think it's trending in the right direction. And quarterback play was something that was really weird in the Gus era, just kind of just cycling through guys. And, you know, he would hit on one guy that he whispered to like a Bo Nix and he would ride that. I mean, I'm sure he sends every year Christmas card to Cam Newton, you know,
did you guys know Cam Newton played for Gus Malzahn?
You know, so it's just kind of like he'll ride on that. So we'll see what happens. But I think we got to go. We got to be on the plus side of 500 this year.
I think Dolly brings up a good point, and that is the culture. And with Scott Frost, and that was going back to his first tenure here at UCF. He was big on culture. And you can ask any of the guys that played for him, the KZs and all that. They were big on culture, family in the locker room, guys that wanted to be there and, were putting in the effort to make the plays and do that sort of thing. So he has mentioned several times in his pressers, and especially he reiterated yesterday for our first day of fall camp, that they've been basically doing a culture crackdown, if you will. And I think that the 2025 roster that he inherited and had to kind of duct tape together did not have that culture that he wants to see in his locker room. So I think he was battling some demons with maybe the guys that he inherited that perhaps didn't want to be there or didn't really buy into his program. And now that they've kind of rectified that this offseason and they're feeling much more comfortable with the guys that they have and the guys that they brought in. He's been very complimentary of Alonzo Barnett being a leader, someone on offense that, that knows how to win and is going to push the guys around him to win. We have not had that in quite some time.
Yeah. Well, you said the name that I was going to talk about next. Dolly mentioned quarterback play, and you said the name, Alonzo Barnett III. He's coming from James Madison, who had themselves a pretty nice little season and happened to score against Oregon, which is, worth something. They scored a couple touchdowns against Oregon. What are your expectations for Alonzo Barnett being the new quarterback now in Orlando as I pull up the projected depth chart here for us?
He started the year. He didn't do spring camp. He was out. He had his coach that went over to UCLA. We were kind of wondering, why didn't he follow? So are you kind of picking up a guy that he was just like, no, you're good to stay here at the G5 level? And then, I'm moving out to, it's UCLA too. I think that was a situation where they had Nico Iamaleava out there. So boosters wanted to keep him. But I think, coming down here, I think we were excited. It looked like Scott Frost opened up the purse strings to get a guy that he wanted. He said, this is the guy that could start year one. The spring was a little bit weird. We're worried, did he get an operation? Is he hurt? Is he injured? And I think, he was really probably one of the most mature quarterbacks we've seen in quite some time, handling all that kind of media inquiry. He, said, I took the mental reps. I've been building bonds with my team, and, seeing those first little bits of early camp, him, tossing the ball to his actual teammates. You only get so many reps and camaraderie at this level. You got to spin the bean and have those mental reps with your guys to build that rapport. So you kind of know where different guys want the ball. But all the teammates and his, on the offensive side of the ball and the team at large thinks he's a great person. The way he talks is very mature. And I think he's going to be a good steward, man. I think he was also a recruit from Signetti, so I like that from a character standpoint. And he just has a presence about him, and I think for UCF fans, there's probably about 3 or 4 quarterbacks that you can look at pillars where the program really took a leap, and probably like Dante Bortles, Mackenzie Milton, and then even having Dylan Gabriel, leaving right at that. He was like one of the first guys that got a bag from the NIL portal. So. Yeah. Like a built by UCF, once you have a quarterback, you can start believing, and everybody knows that in this league, you just need one guy and you can kind of build some pieces around him. So I'm excited to see what he can do. I like a head coach that says, this is my guy. I believe in him. Here's the clear cut. And he's also got some bell cows behind them to kind of develop. And the room's developing under Mackenzie Milton as a head coach now. So I'm very interested to see. I'm cautiously optimistic, but the hopium is definitely intoxicating at the moment.
You mentioned Dylan Gabriel, Dolly, and correct me if I'm wrong. I think that Alonzo is the first presumptive QB1 that we've had going into fall camp since Dylan Gabriel left. It has just been a rotation of starting quarterbacks for UCF. We're almost like the Miami Dolphins at this point. We've had so many
guys. Yeah,
we've had so many starting quarterbacks, and not only that, but we didn't know who the starter was going to be going into our preseason camps and fall camps. It was just kind of like, we're going to see who does the best and whoever wins the job. And now we have that presumptive starter. Frost has his guy. They were able to go out and get Alonzo from the portal, somebody that they said that they followed very closely and that he was the guy that they wanted. So it gives you a lot hope that he's going to be able to lead this offense, and he's got some weapons around him too. And I'm sure we'll talk about the question marks, which are going to be the O-line, and can they keep him upright? But he's got the experience to win, and that's just so refreshing for us Knights fans to have a quarterback that we can kind of trust to take the reins.
Yeah, but before we get into the rest of this depth chart, yes, Matt Dolan, the Mickey Mouse ears were a consideration, but hard to make them work with a headset. We can't do two, right? And you got to hear me, and I got to hear them. So it is what it is. But yeah, you look at this offensive depth chart; it's extremely senior and junior heavy, which you love. But there's a lot of gold on it. And for those of you who don't know, our lads puts gold for transfers. So the question here is, I mean, hey, it's a new era of college football. Mercenaries are kind of the norm. Not a lot of programs are really developing guys in the same way they used to. Like UCF used to be a real big developer type team, like TCU used to be. The question is, can all these guys play together? And when I look at 4 transfers on the offensive line, that could either go really good or really, really horribly, because these are 5 guys who've never played together, who don't know each other's eccentricities, who haven't been in the same offense for several years. And then, of course, you've got several transfer running backs, transfer receivers. What is y'all's read on the offense as a whole, and how much should we be worried about that offensive line?
I think the offensive line, we had the late Sean Clark pass away middle of the season, our O-line coach, and that kind of pieced together that unit from a legacy coach that was a mentor to the late Sean Clark. And it was just a little bit, you can kind of see the slide of, that's pretty traumatic. That's your leader for the year that you've been kind of building behind. And, for a first year back head coach that's trying to piece it together, to have such a crucial unit, have a tragedy like that strike. It's impactful. I think you saw that throughout the year. We got AJ Blazik. I think he was at Wisconsin before, had some time off as well. He's got some energy. You can kind of hear his rasp in his voice in some of the videos for the preseason. I think I'm excited to see the opportunity for a line to come together. I think they realize the holes that we had last year, that you really can't miss on that. Granted, now we have a mobile quarterback where, there's some opportunities that present themselves where you can mask some things with some rollouts, some screen passes, a lot of backfield trickery, which is in Scott Frost's kind of bag. But I really need to see those first couple weeks, we'll open up against Bethune-Cookman. But then, we're on the road at a Power 4 team, and Pitt's not a slouch. They can definitely get some people at the top level of the ACC. So I'd like to see how we, have that. And then, again, it's out of conference. So if they are respectable and they kind of put it together and grow week by week, that's what I want to see from my teams. You can be 5-7, you can be 6-6. But if every week you're getting incrementally a little bit better, and I can kind of see a light at the end of the tunnel, that's exciting. That's encouraging as a fan. But I think I will be very wary of, I really don't even think we've kind of landed on a center either. So, coming in a month in, that's crucial. But I'm encouraged by Barnett's leadership, that he can kind of galvanize that unit. And regardless, it'll probably be, talent per pound, something better than he had over at JMU. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, a lot of transfers, like our lads has it right there. Just a lot of new faces to gel together in a quick time. And sometimes you can catch lightning in a bottle. I think we've all worked at different places where you kind of just mesh really quickly. But it's definitely going to take some time.
Yeah, I think if you're looking at the offense as a whole, the one major glaring question mark that UCF fans and the coaches will probably tell you this too is going to be the offensive line. We don't know what we have yet. And Scott Frost just said yesterday, yeah, we're still trying to figure out who that 5th guy is going to be on that offensive line. So I think Dolly's right. I don't think that they have solidified who their center is going to be. And it's not like the center is a very important part of your offensive line or anything. So, I mean, as a UCF fan,
very minor.
It's pretty terrifying, to be honest. But I think that, to Dolly's point, as he said, I think that Scott Frost, he's a schemer, right? Offense is what he does. He likes to run a lot of RPO plays. He likes to have a lot of pre-snap motion. So I think that they're going to do a pretty good job, especially with Alonzo Barnett, under center or taking the snaps, I think that they're going to be able to at least hide perhaps some of the deficiencies that we might see from the offensive line by, causing motion and getting things out of place for the defense. Now, as a Big 12 fan, that, they've got beef up front on the defensive line of the ball everywhere you go. So yes, the offensive line is going to be a problem, but I think that if the pieces around the offensive line, our receivers, our tight ends, our running backs, who are pretty deep as well, I think that we can hide at least some of the deficiencies that the offensive line might have. And Dally's right. We might strike gold. Who knows? We don't really know what this team is going to be until we get out and start, putting the pads on and playing some ball. So we'll see. But that is the one thing that we're looking for on the offense, is to see some consistency at offensive line.
Well, I hope you're right. Well, Bill, I really do.
You and me both.
I think is doing a lot of work in that statement.
We're a hopeful bunch. We're a hopeful bunch.
Yes. Dishfish shouting out that Central Florida has an enrollment of 70,000. Yeah, let me put that into perspective for some of y'all who aren't UCF fans, or maybe UCF fans who take that for granted. TCU's living alumni base is about 100,000. Like, that's not an exaggeration. Okay, so yes, UCF is a very big school. It's got a big fan base. Absolutely. That's why they got added to the Big 12. All right, let's look at this defense a little bit. So a little bit more continuity on the defense, and also a lot of upperclassmen. Are we feeling better in year 2 of Scott Frost 2.0 about this 4-2-5 defense, gentlemen?
Yeah, I think the crazy thing about coming from the Gus era to the Frost era, Gus was really big on 4 stars, a big splash boom in the offseason, and kind of seeing where that development lay. And there was a couple guys that we didn't really get to see pan out by injury, or just kind of, one consistent coach, but, a different change of regime. It's been different. We have upperclassmen this year, like an Isaiah Nixon, DN, Sincere Edwards. He was the guy that was a hometown hero that left from here to go to Pittsburgh. I think Orlando's, for our recruiting, we've always kind of looked at it as like, listen, you can play Power 4 football at home. You shouldn't be going all the way up to Pittsburgh, right? Mm-hmm. So you have some guys that, they go to a different place, they get a bag, and then they come back home. They parachute home, which is totally fine. So I'm excited to see what our line can do. They've been well coached for a few years now. It's probably one of our strongest suits. We did lose John Walker, kind of one of our prized possessions from the local area, from a local high school up to Ohio State. I think that was just like, listen, I'm really a guy and I can get developed to go to the league. So that was his move. But he gave us a good 2 years and kind of a start. So I think on the defensive end side, and the D line, I think, I'm encouraged by that unit, year in, year out. And then we got a linebacker, Lewis Carter, which is a straight man. And then Jaden Bellamy is a playmaker on the corner. I saw Grinch's tenure to kind of get here. And I think that's a guy that definitely has a chip on his shoulder. I really like the things that I saw last year. I think, having corners that actually turn their head around like The Exorcist was a welcoming thing, not just letting guys blow by you. So that was, like I said, that was a unit that I saw getting a little bit better by better, even though the quarterback play was not what we needed it to be. I remember seeing some, I was in Manhattan and seeing some good plays to kind of slow down Avery Johnson. I was looking at, how they clamped the game that we could have lost against Oklahoma State last year, which was, really kind of our conference win. So I'm encouraged by that side. I think if you play complementary ball, Scott Frost has definitely been throttling the offense. It's not the quick score in, 90 seconds and just kind of hand the ball off. But I'm encouraged by our defense. I think Grinch year 2 could sneakily be one of the biggest stories at UCF, because if he has a great year, I think he can launch Pat to somewhere else if he chooses. But he's definitely going to have to get us, back to a certain standard.
Big 12 fans may not know this about UCF, but for a long time, we prided ourselves on being a defensive team. The defense was always, at least under George O'Leary, our head coach in the early 2000s, up to his retirement when he left and Scott Frost came on, we were a defense-first team. That's the way George O'Leary coached his teams. He was a defensive-minded guy, and offense kind of came second. Defense wins championship was always his mantra. And I don't think that this defense is any different than what we have seen from prior UCF defenses in the past, right? Yes, everyone talks about Scott Frost and everyone talks about Mackenzie Milton and Blake Bortles and Dylan Gabriel and all, some of the elite quarterbacks that we've had in the more recent years. But before that, we relied on our defense. And certainly in 2025, it was the defense that kept us in most of the games that we played in. Now you've got Lewis Carter, like Dolly mentioned. He's going to be playing on Sundays. He is a guy that's returning that a lot of us are quite surprised he did not get poached. He's that good of a player that he probably could have gone anywhere and gotten a bag, but he stayed at UCF. We've got Big Horace Lockett up front and Sincere Edwards. Both of them had injuries last year, so they did not get to play to their full potential, and they're back this season. So, besides losing John Walker and perhaps a few others on defense, I think that we feel pretty confident that this defense is going to be able to at least produce the way that it produced last year. And I think that, to Dolly's point, Alex Grinch does have a bit of a chip on his shoulder, just like Scott Frost did when he came back from, his time at that other school out in the Northwest. So I think that they pair well together because they have something to prove. And I think that Grinch is going to have these guys ready to play, and the defense is going to be the strong side of the football team this year.
Man, you mentioned UCF defense of the past, and there's two names that immediately come to my mind. Shaq Griffin, right? Shaquille and Shaquem Griffin, absolutely.
They were monsters. Yeah, they were both really good. And we had a bunch of guys that were really good on defense going back to other years. Of course, offense is they're the ones that get all the splashy statistics and all that fun stuff. But I mean, if you like football, you like defense.
Absolutely. You're talking to TCU fans language for sure.
That's true.
That's a long-time TCU fan. Okay. Well, so before we get into the schedule, I mean, let's take a bird's eye view of things for a minute, right? I mean, we don't have a Big 12 poll anymore, so nobody's been picked to finish last, and we know Colorado's going to be ass. We know Cincinnati's not going to be good, but there's not a lot of positive conversation around UCF either. Is the Big 12 nation sleeping on UCF, and why is UCF going to be, like I said in my tweet advertising the show, why could y'all be 2024 Arizona State this year?
Some of our best seasons, like if you would have told me, we were in conference, you would say in 7-10, we opened up the year with Texas at home, which is kind of ironic. We're having the Big 12 team at the time. Coming off a national championship a few years earlier, open up our stadium. We hung in that game. And then we won our first conference championship that year. We go to 2010. We did never think that Bortles was going to be a guy that lead us to the Fiesta Bowl to start that season. 2015, we go winless. We see that we're kind of on life support, and we go, 6-7, losing the bowl game with Scott Frost. And then we have that magical year thereafter, sometimes the great thing about UCF football is you just kind of never know what you're going to get, and you can have some
for better or for worse, for better or for worse,
and you have some excitement. And you're just kind of like, all right, And I think we went on that run. Like you had 17, and then Heupel plugs in, and we kind of just run it back. Bread and butter was eyeballs, Central Florida. That's a market in the state of Florida, and football. And granted, it's a transition period. TCU was the same way when you guys moved up. You guys had amazing success in the 10s before you moved up here. So I think it's kind of like, it's we get off on that. It's like you undersell us and you don't think we could do it. And I think that makes it that much more fun, a little bit sweeter. I also think too, it's just like, we kind of have a lot of our hard games at home. We have an Arizona State at home and Iowa State at home as well. We're on the road at an Oklahoma State, but they're breaking in granted, they're in a new spot, but Misty Maker and their head coach there from UNT to Stillwater. So he's a guy that I think when that hiring carousel was going around, I think he's the only dude that could have juiced us how we're juiced, in the last 13 months. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, the schedule is interesting this year. We get a lot of good breaks for ourselves on this schedule. I think we're going to know a lot in the first 2 weeks. I mean, the first week we host Bethune-Cookman, so that's not going to be too much of a barn burner, but we immediately then go on the road to Pitt, and we've got to play Pittsburgh on the road at Pitt. So I think we're going to know in the first 2 weeks what this team is. And if we can win at Pitt, then you're talking to yourself, okay, we're going to start the season just like we've done the last few seasons. We're going to start 3-0, right? And here we are going in. We're playing TCU in the bounce house, and again we catch a break because you guys are coming to the bounce house. So it should be advantage us just because we're at home, but TCU is a really good program. So I think that I can look at any one of these games for the most part, and I can convince myself, with a few exceptions, that we can win this game. Yeah, we can win this game. We can win all these games. Okay, maybe not the Arizona State game, although we do get them at home. Probably not the BYU game, even though, again, we get them at home. So maybe I start to talk myself into these things. But I think that the schedule is complementary towards us this year, but I think we're going to have to catch some breaks along the way too. And that's what's going to be important is can we, if let's say that we go in and we lose to Pittsburgh, do the wheels fall off in week 2? Or can Scott Frost, Alonzo Barnett keep this team together, rebound the following week, and then come in fighting to play TCU to open our conference schedule? And I think that we're going to learn a lot in the first 2 to 4 weeks what kind of team we have. And if the team is what we think it is, much improved from last year, I mean, we can find ourselves looking at perhaps a 7-win season. I think that 7 wins before a bowl game would be enough to keep most of the UCF fans happy with this coaching change that we've seen with Scott Frost coming in. And I don't see the Athletics Association making any changes if we go 7-5 year 2 with this Scott Frost team.
Yeah, I think you're 100% right. As we look at the schedule here, there's definitely a pathway to 6-7 wins, and all the kids went crazy. That's a bowl season, right? That's exciting. By my reckoning, by my system that I, my scientific system that I made early this offseason, UCF had the 6th most difficult schedule in the Big 12. So, relatively difficult. But like you said, you really catch a break in that almost all of your most difficult games are at home. TCU, BYU, Arizona State, all at home. I do think that the September 26th through October 24th is a very tough stretch because I think Houston's going to be pretty good this year. Not like that's a very hostile environment to go into, but I think they're going to be pretty good. I think Oklahoma State's going to be a lot better, and Stillwater is a very tough place to play. So that's a very tough 4 games there. But really, I mean, after that, that's where you're going to make some hay while the sun's shining because Baylor may not even have a coach by then. Yeah. Kansas is not going to be very good. Colorado's not going to be very good. Iowa State's that's a program in transition. Who knows what they're going to look like by November 20th. So, yeah, there's absolutely reason to be hopeful that UCF can get back to a bowl game and start building some positive momentum like y'all have been talking about.
Go ahead, Dallas.
I was going to say the addition of Alonzo Barnett is at least good for 0.51 win, year over year. I think worst case scenario, we went 5-7 last year. 6-6 is definitely it just needs to happen.
I think if you're looking at the schedule, and the coaches have mentioned this, Scott Frost mentioned this a couple times, the areas of concern that I have are right around the middle of the season. We're on the road at Houston, which Houston has a good team, right? Let's not forget that they're bringing Connor Wegman back, and he's going to be a really good quarterback this year. So we have to go on the road to Houston. Not the toughest atmosphere to play in, but we still have to go to Houston and beat them there. Immediately the following week, we're on the road at Oklahoma State, which we know had just got a fresh infusion with their coach. They've got Mestamaker coming in. So again, that's going to be, and that's a tough environment to play in, okay? So those 2 games are concerning from a UCF fan's perspective. And then the other area that always worries me is going on the road to Colorado in late November. We do not play well in the cold. We are Florida players for the most part, and having to go out to Boulder in late November is going to be tough on these players. So you never really know what kind of mindset they're going to be in. I mean, if the wheels fall off early, God knows what's going to be like if we go into Boulder and we're having a losing season. Boulder, I mean, Dion is still there. He has a way of getting his guys hyped up. They could be looking to spoil a season by the end of the season. So who knows what we're going to be facing there. Those are the areas of concern if you're just looking at the schedule. But other than that, it's pretty manageable.
I mean, well, yeah, and I think too. Well, Dolly, I want to hear from you in a second. The likelihood that you steal one of those tough games at home. I mean, we were talking before the show started, before we started recording. As a TCU fan, I'm a little concerned about that UCF game, right? Because that's the week before we play BYU. We'll likely be, hopefully, knock on wood, be 3-0 at that point, and that just has trap game in Orlando written all over it, right? The likelihood that you could steal a win against TCU, steal a win against Arizona State, maybe even steal a win against BYU, dare I say. It's that possibility is there. Dolly, what are you thinking?
Yeah, I think too, just like the way it sets up, there's a few short weeks, like Iowa State, they got to come here. That's like on a Friday. And then you got Baylor's on a Friday is going to be the space game on the eve of Halloween. So that'll be a madhouse. But that rivalry has just every weirdness packed into it for what it's played. I think TCU, I mean, I was looking at people were talking about online. It was like, that could be a sneaky game day or Fox. There's some monster games that day, though. I think like the Oklahoma Georgias of the world and, all that. But, if the storyline's there, that could be interesting. But, that week at Houston, like you said, I think that gets a little treacherous, that Houston, Oklahoma State. I think that's where that stretch can just kind of like break your spirit because you're at Houston. It's just like, we came up with you and this really wasn't your thing. It's basketball only. And then Oklahoma State in year one of a rebuild with a G5 coach that's stepping up. Granted, that's an incredible atmosphere to play at. And I think BYU, I think we're just a little bit tired of just getting the shit kicked out of us by BYU the last few years. So yeah, I mean, that's a different sweet spot that things can go awry. But at the same time, you start splitting a couple of those games and you get some momentum on the back half. You're absolutely right. I didn't even think about Aranda not being the head coach for that Friday night game, not even making the month of November.
Baylor fans would love to see that.
Yeah. So I don't know. But and the other thing, too, is just like, okay, let's say you're going into Colorado. That may be a bowl game for bowl eligibility, Dion just trying to go out on, on good terms of getting one win before he dips. So it'll be interesting. And again, like traveling all the way to Colorado, half these kids are all from across the country too. Like they haven't been real. I mean, they've been Floridians for 9 months, I think we're only returning like 22 guys. I think there'll be juice. But if there's enough of a storyline and enough to play for, it gets an interesting season for sure.
Two final thoughts for you, Clint. First, so this schedule, I said, kind of benefits us in some ways and kind of is to our disadvantage in some ways. The other thing that we haven't talked about is we avoid playing both Texas Tech and Utah this season,
So now you got me curious. Let's look at week 4 of college football. Whether or not I'll come, like, I don't know. Like I want to see a game with a bounce house. It's just like this fall has been particularly difficult for me. And like, if I have to come up with another lesson plan for a sub, like this fall, like I'm already like, because I got to go to 2 weddings this fall, like in August, September. And I'm just like, oh my
blasphemy,
God.
Fall weddings.
I'm like, I'm like, I want to teach about Louis the 13th. Like, come on. Okay. So, all right, so we're looking at it right now. Let's see, TCU, UCF.
I think a monster was like Oklahoma, Georgia.
Yeah, Oklahoma, Georgia. College Game Day doesn't give a crap about interesting games anymore. They just go with the names. But I could see a Big Noon for sure. Big Noon to me is the new College Game Day.
Yeah,
that's But yeah, Oklahoma, Georgia. But yeah, outside of that. Yeah, none of these really look all that interesting, unless you're just getting really hyped for the Shillelagh game, Notre Dame, Purdue, or I guess Oregon, USC.
Oregon, USC, if they're trying to get that West Coast audience.
Yeah, I think USC is going to be a lot better this year. Look out for Gary Patterson at defensive coordinator. That's going to be scurry for sure. But yeah, I mean, there's potential. There's potential for a TCU UCF Big Noon. I'd love to see it.
We didn't do so well in our last Big 12 Big Noon kickoff matchup.
We got DJ Khaled though for like
we did. That was
5 hours
for those of you that don't know, we were 3-0 and we hosted Dion in Colorado at home and just got the doors blown out. No UCF fans saw that coming. Colorado fans didn't see that coming. We were talking to them before the game and they're like, yeah, you guys are you're gonna beat us. It's gonna be ugly. And it was ugly. It was just ugly the wrong way.
That was a great tailgate. That was my Miami fans in Colorado jerseys. That was an awesome tailgate.
Well, the internet's forever, gentlemen. If you had to call it right now, if you had to put money down right now, what's UCF's record gonna be in 2026?
Go ahead, Brian.
Well, I called it last year. We were going to be 5-7, and I was spot on. So
did you really?
I did, yeah. Go back and watch our other shows.
Excuse me.
I'm going to say 7-5 in the regular season. Give me 7-5.
That's including that's just straight
Not
regular
including
season?
a bowl game. That's just regular season.
Yeah, I think I'm going to be more Brian Peterson than Dolly. I'm going to go 6-6. I'm going to I think 6-6. We just got to get over that hump. Yeah, we have not won a bowl game since 2021.
Holy moly.
Against the Gators, dude. When you think about that, that's like half my 30s. Just no bowl games. I mean, we're going up to play Duke in Annapolis with JRP and Gus in a smock vest with a turtleneck, and we're getting the shit kicked out of us at 2:30 at an idle Tuesday as you're waiting like on your Christmas break. Like, dude, we have not been good. Had the last year of the Gasparilla Bowl. I mean, Georgia Tech just ran it down our throats. We have not had something. I mean, you give me like a season where we're like flirting with going to the Pop-Tart. We're staying home at a Pop-Tart, hopes at a home Pop-Tarts Bowl.
Dude, that's the vision. The Pop-Tart Bowl is the goal for all of us.
You know what I mean? Like,
that's where we all want to be. Yeah.
I think of just I gotta see. My heart will really hurt if we just ran it back with Scott Frost. And I think this would be like the end of the season. We don't go bowling. It's kind of. I think we all have to look in the mirror of like, thank you for 2017, like Mike Bianchi said. The nostalgia vapors are super stale. I mean, that's quietly going to be 10 years next year. A decade.
We're getting old.
Yeah, we're all going to die someday.
Yeah, you know what I mean? So it's just like, we got to do something, man. I just want to buy some shitty bowl game tickets, just say you did it, have some momentum 7-5, but we got to get something on the board, man, because football-wise, I mean, basketball, we've been done good. Softball, Olympic sports have been fantastic, but, the bread and butter is fall ball, and we really need to see some juice back in the building on the football side.
I'll give you my thought, and this is that I thought about 6-6 as a record too, and that's very possible. Dolly could be spot on there, but we were 5-7 last year, and this was my thinking. If we're 5-7 last year without a quarterback, so to speak, and Scott Frost having to come in, like I said, and duct tape together a roster at the last second. We lost our offensive line coach partway through the season. Like, we're 5-7, which was pretty miraculous given everything that we had to endure last year. Right. You would think that even just the addition of Alonzo Barnett, a CFP level quarterback, is worth 2 wins. I mean, we were a couple bounces away from being 6-6 last year. We were 1 play away from beating Houston, to close that game out. We had to go back to Davie Belfort, our 3rd string quarterback, for a Hail Mary, and we almost pulled it off. So, I mean, you would think Alonzo Barnett and the guys that we brought in would be worth 2 wins.
Is he the only starting quarterback in the Big 12 with CFP experience? Has to be, right? It's got to be a good stat. It's a good tweet.
Yeah,
I think so, because
just off the top of my head,
yeah.
And most of our guys are on the older side, right? They're more experienced. I saw a stat somewhere that we're in college football this year. We're one of the top 10 or 15 oldest teams in terms of our players.
Running the Brigham Young playbook, yeah,
right.
Let's go on the woods, come back.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I got one more question that I'm going to leave y'all with. Okay. If the Citronaut walked up to you and squeezed himself into a cup, right? He offered you some of his juice, right? Hey, darling, drink some of my juice. Would you drink it?
Is he just an orange Fat Albert? No.
It's just this fella. That's how I imagine he says,
no.
How you doing? Drink some of my juice.
No.
I offer you the bounty of my body.
Maybe if it was Nitro's counterpart, glycerin, I'd be down, but not the Citronaut. He's just an idea, I'm not trying to.
I politely decline.
Yeah.
Wild Bill, are you drinking the Citronaut's juice?
Just to be different from Dolly. So, just to be different from Dolly, yes, I'll say yes. For those of you that don't know, his name is technically Squeezer, so that's not out of the realm of possibility for him. Yeah, Squeezer.
Why did y'all ever move on from him? Come on.
I've been knighted by Nitro, so I guess that I'd have to add drinking Squeezer juice to the list of UCF fandom accomplishments.
Brian was student body president back in the day, so it's like
Sir Brian.
That was a long time ago.
Yeah. It's not like he sends us like newspaper clippings from back then either. You know?
I would never do such a thing.
Yeah.
I would never do such a thing.
Well, he is Dolly Drama, and he is Sir Brian Peterson. This has been UCF Night. Gentlemen, I'm going to roll out the gold carpet for you. Tell the people where they can follow you and anything you've got going on that you want to plug for the folks out there.
Yeah, absolutely. Follow me at Dolly_drama on